The Chester rolling mill was a large iron, later steel, rolling mill established by shipbuilder John Roach in Chester, Pennsylvania, United States in 1873. The main purpose of the mill was to provide metal hull plates, beams and other parts for the ships built at Roche's Delaware River Iron Shipbuilding and Engine Works, also located at Chester. Amongst the mill's notable achievements, it manufactured the steel plates for the first steel-hulled steamship built in the United States, Alaskan, and for the U.S. Navy's first 4 steel ships, the so-called ABCD ships. Production of the latter vessels drove Roche's shipbuilding empire into receivership after the government unexpectedly repudiated the contracts, and Roach was forced to sell the Chester rolling mill and most of his other companies to satisfy creditors. The Chester rolling mill later became part of the Wellman Steel Company. History. Roach established his shipyard, the Delaware River Iron Shipbuilding and Engine Works, on the Delaware River at Chester in 1871. He had 2 reasons for establishing the Chester rolling mill. Firstly, the locality of Chester lacked facilities for the large-scale production of iron plates and frames, as required by his shipyard. Secondly, by establishing his own rolling mill, he could dispense with iron-making subcontractors and thus reduce his overall costs. Roach's ownership of a network of companies supporting his shipyard, which included the Chester rolling mill, the Chester Pipe and Tube Company and later the Standard Steel Casting Company and the Combination Steel and Iron Company, made John Roach and Sons one of the first large companies in the United States to adopt the vertical integration model, organization and structure. The Chester rolling mill was incorporated with a capital of $300,000 on March 10, 1875 by John Roach and a number of partners including Roach's sons John B. and Garrett, and local Chester business identities John Q. Denny and Charles B. and David Houston. The elder Roach became president of the new company, and Charles and David Houston were made general manager and paymaster respectively, while their brother Thomas also received a management position. Roach and his sons held the majority of shares. The connection with the Houston family was of particular importance to Roach as the Houstons had investments in Pennsylvanian iron and coal mines, virtually guaranteeing the new company a reliable supply of raw materials. The Houstons also controlled Chester's only newspaper, the Chester Times, and they in turn shared business interests with Samuel A. Crozer, whose extended family, the wealthiest in Chester, owned the city's largest textile mills. Collectively, the Roach, Houston and Crozer families employed 25% of Chester's working population and accounted for 35% of its payroll, their partnership ensuring dominance of the city's politics. Early period, 1875 to 1879. The Chester rolling mill was established on the site of an old bridge and steel works at the foot of Wilson and Hayes Sts. Chester, incorporating the area between Townsend to Highland Avenue, and from Front Street to the Delaware River. Construction of the main rolling mill, a building with dimensions of 160 by 185 feet, began in 1875. In 1879, the building was doubled in size, from 160 to 320 feet. Initial output was 700 tons of pig iron and 300 tons of iron ship plate. Pig iron, beams, and hull and boiler plates were produced both for Roach's main shipyard in Chester and for his other shipbuilding facility, the Morgan Iron Works in New York City. With the establishment of the mill, Roach was able to introduce a number of innovations into the industry which reduced time and cut costs. To begin with, He rejected the standard ship plate size of 12 by 4 feet, 48 squ. feet, and rolled larger plates of 14 by 5 feet, 70 squ. feet. This simple innovation reduced the time spent in planing, punching and chipping plates by 40%, reduced handling times, and had the added advantage of producing a stronger ship with fewer butts to strain. Roche also endeavored as far as possible to roll plates to their finished dimensions, saving time which other companies spent on reworking plates at the shipyard. Expansion of facilities. 1882–81. In 1880, Roche embarked on a substantial upgrade of the mill's facilities. A second blast furnace was constructed above the original rolling mill, along with new buildings covering about 1¼ acres, including a new 90 by 140 feet steelworks. The new furnace commenced production on November 1, 1881. In order to pay for the expansion, the firm was recapitalized at $600,000. By this time, the mill included 2 puddling mills with 11 furnaces and a total output of 50 tons per day, a mill for boiler and ship plate with a capacity of 45 tons per day, and a mill for angle, beam and scalp iron with a daily capacity of 35 tons. Included in the above were 2 large gas-operated furnaces and a mill which could produce plates from 1/8 to 6-inch thickness and 27 feet wide. Roche's milling machines incorporated both vertical and horizontal rollers which allowed plates to be finished with parallel edges, eliminating the necessity of shearing ragged edges to size. Some of the new machinery was capable of rolling steel as well as iron ingots. Power to operate the milling machines was provided by 4 large corliss steam engines and 8 smaller ones. A 5-ton steam hammer was also installed. After the expansion, the mill could produce 300 tons of steel plate a day in addition to the 300 tons of iron plate and 700 tons of pig iron ore already produced. The mill as a whole consumed 1,400 tons of iron ore, 600 tons of limestone and 1,000 tons of coal per week. The workforce was also expanded to 500 people, with a weekly payroll of $6,000. A notable achievement for the company following the addition of the steel milling facilities was the production of steel plates for America's first steel-hulled ship, the cargo ship Alaskan, built by the Roche shipyard for the Oregon Railway and Navigation Company and delivered in August 1883. ABCD ships and Roche Receivership. On July 2, 1883, John Roach and Sons won the contracts for all 4 of the Navy's first steel ships: Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, and Dolphin, or the ABCD ships, as they came to be known. The only bidder with his own steel mill, Roche was able to undercut the other bidders by a total of $270,000 on the price of steel alone. The final contracts were signed on July 23 and Roche began construction of the ships shortly thereafter. Roche was initially confident that he would have no difficulty supplying the steel for the 4 ships. To ensure the minimum of delay, he subcontracted with several other steel manufacturers, including the Norway Iron and Steel Company of South Boston, the Park Brothers Black Diamond Works of Pittsburgh, and the Phoenix Iron Company of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, for the supply of various steel parts. So exacting were the specifications, however, that a third of all the parts produced were rejected by Navy inspectors, leading to cost overruns which eventually persuaded the subcontractors to renege on their agreements with Roche. Roche was left having to manufacture all the steel parts himself, although the situation was somewhat alleviated by the fact that another Roche company, the Standard Steel Casting Company, had recently begun production. Delays in production of the steel along with additional unexpected delays prolonged construction of the ships past the 1884 presidential election, and by the time Roche was ready to deliver the first ship, Dolphin, the new Democrat administration of Grover Cleveland, who became president on March 4, 1885, hostile to the staunchly Republican Roche, had assumed office in what many regarded as a politically motivated act. The new Cleveland administration found reasons to void Roche's contract for Dolphin, with another 3 Navy ships still unpaid for in his shipyard whose contracts might also be declared void. Roche was unable to secure loans to continue his business and was forced into receivership. In the subsequent liquidation of assets, the Chester rolling mill along with the rest of Roche's companies, with the exception of his Chester shipyard and the Morgan Iron Works in New York, were sold to pay off creditors. Later history. After selling their shares in the company, Roche and his sons resigned from their positions in February 1886, and the Chester rolling mill appears to have been taken over by Roche's former partner Samuel A. Crosser, who became the company's new president. In 1890, the mill was purchased by Samuel Taylor Wellman, becoming part of the Wellman Steel Company. This venture proved unsuccessful, and Wellman dispensed with his holdings in about 1896. Footnotes. Ashmead, Graham Henry, 1884. History of Delaware County, Pennsylvania. L. H. Evetts & Co., Pennsylvania. Berglund, Abraham, 1907. The United States Steel Corporation. A study of the growth and influence of combination in the iron and steel industry. Columbia University Press. New York. Dodge. Grenville M. Ann Ellis. William Arbour, 1911. Norwich University 1819–1911. Her History. Her Graduates. Her Roll of Honor. Volume 2. Capital City Press. Vermont. Field. James Alfred. Marshall. Leon Carroll. Wright. Chester Whitney. 1913. Materials for the Study of Elementary Economics. University of Chicago Press. Swan. Leonard Alexander, Jr. 1965. John Roach. Maritime Entrepreneur. The Years as Naval Contractor 1862–1886. United States Naval Institute. Reprinted 1980 by Air Publishing. ISBN 978-0-405-13078-6. Tyler, David B. 1958. The American Clyde. A History of Iron and Steel Shipbuilding on the Delaware from 1840 to World War I. University of Delaware Press. Reprinted 1992. ISBN 978-0-87413-1017.